Welcome to our first-time listeners, and welcome back to all of our return participants. We are live in the BlendKit 2015 Orlando studio. It is raining here today in the Sunshine State. I understand I'm getting no empathy from our cold climate participants, so I'll move on quickly. I am Sue Bauer, and this is our fourth weekly webinar session for BlendKit 2015. We are wrapping up week 04, Blended Content and Assignments. And as always, I'd like to introduce Rohan Jawala and John Pizzo. And also joining us are our guest panelists. We have Dr. Debbie Hasselhan and Dr. Beth Carlson, whom I will introduce in just a minute. Let's go ahead and take a few moments to look at some of the images that have been shared with us this week. All right, first we have a picture of John and Rohan hard at work. You can also see that we have, I hope I say it right, Marie, who's busy at work, and we see lots of art in the background. So what a great little picture showing her community of learning happening where she is. We also have Autumn and Amanda, who were nice to submit some candid photos and lovely quotes about BlendKit 2015. Again, thank you everybody for those contributions. And lastly, we have Shakib, and I knew I was square, but now I know I'm a cube. So thank you again for all those submissions. We are already saving submissions that we got later this weekend, and so we will be using those for next week's presentation. We love having those submitted. We love seeing what everybody's doing around the world, especially the pictures and these little takeaways that you guys are posting, so thank you again. I know it might be hard to believe, but that excited exhaustion that we're all feeling is the culmination of our 5 weeks together in BlendKit 2015. However, we are not done yet. As we wrap up week 04 and we kick off week 05, please remember that we also set aside an additional week for everybody to play catch-up. So if you are interested in earning badges, or if you are seeking to complete the course, you can complete course tasks until 11:59 Eastern Standard Time on Monday, April 6, 2015. We also realized that this past week we had a little badge hiccup, and a couple people got awarded more badges than normal, and that's okay. I think it's better to get more than none. So please feel free to encourage any colleagues to go ahead and join us from now until April. Next Monday, the 30th, will be our final live webinar session for BlendKit 2015, and Rohan and I are working on something special for this wrap-up session, so keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about our polls. Hopefully you've had a chance to review today's poll, so let's turn our attention to what you're thinking about this week's topic of designing presentations of content and assignments for blended learning courses. As in the past weeks, we've done this through the 3 short poll questions. Remember that if you're viewing the recording of this session, we still consider you a participant as well, so please access the poll with either the link or the QR code, and you may enter your poll responses, comments, or questions, and remember not to hit submit until, of course, the end of the session. All right, so let's go ahead and look at poll 1. How will content presentations take place in your blended learning course? If you have thoughts please list them. Well, we didn't have a whole lot of answers or participants before the session started, but I can at least say everybody agreed. So I think the only one that we see here that people weren't on board with was the publisher's resources. And I have had conversations with our participants inside the MOOC, so I know some of you are looking at those. And just from my experience, I've really found that publishers now are trying to sell more of their sell more of their textbooks by offering such resources that come along just with the book itself. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at poll 2. This week's DIY task focused on the preparation of online content materials, but last week's DIY task focused on writing clear assignment instructions, including an articulation of how students are going to submit their work. In previous weeks, you've shared some of your plans of a variety of assignment types in your blended learning courses. So let's look at where you're planning to receive your student work. And again, if you had thoughts, please make sure you enter them in the other area. And right now, we've got that both face-to-face and online is where we are going to have your students submitting your work. All right, our last poll, poll 3. You may or not be planning to present online modules to students, but what is your plan for providing consistency for students and how you guide them through their weekly work. Well, we actually had submissions of other, but they didn't enter the other. So we'll make sure or try to find out if we can get some other answers for you this week. Again, please make sure that if you're watching this recorded that you still participate in the poll. Okay, just a reminder, as we hear from our guest panelists today, please listen for their approaches to presenting content and assignments in their blended learning courses. During the presentation, if you have any comments or questions you'd like to add, please use the Q&A window to post those. Again, you'll go up to the corner where you see almost the tic-tac-toe or checkerboard, select that, and then select the Q&A, and that will open up a panel where you can use that to address any of your ideas or questions for today's session. Okay, let's get on to the guest speakers. Please allow me to introduce to you Dr. Debbie Hasvan from UCF and Dr. Beth Carlson from St. Petersburg College. Debbie works at UCF in the Department of Educational and Human Sciences. She is a researcher with extensive experience teaching face-to-face, online, and blended courses in research methods and statistics. Debbie was a 2013 recipient of the Educational Researcher of the Year, presented by the Florida Educational Research Association. We also have with us Beth Carlson. Beth's discipline is American Sign Language and Development and Writing Experience. She has over 10 years experience with teaching blended courses, extensive experience teaching both face-to-face and online, and in 2009 she was awarded by the Instructional Technology Council the Outstanding Blended Course for her structure of ASL courses. So what a great pair of speakers we have for us today. So let's move right into question one. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask the first question to Debbie, and then I'll give Beth a chance to follow up with that. So question one, how do you quantify contact hours for your blended learning courses with respect to your institutional's accreditation requirements?
I do that through my syllabus, and I guess UCF may be, and my college in particular, may be unique, but we submit our syllabus with our office hours, and that seems to satisfy the quantification of contact hours. I always structure my hours so I have some face-to-face hours in my office, but I also include virtual hours as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Debbie. And Beth?
Yeah, I would have to say I'm very much like what Debbie has said. We have virtual hours, and in class we meet an hour and a half, and probably there's 60% of the work the students say, and from surveys that 60% has been online. And so lately I've also been trying to balance that out a little bit more. They want more face-to-face, and there are several reasons for that, which I can explain. But just to answer your question, virtual hours, the syllabus, very similar.
Okay, and I've had a similar experience too. I was asked to be on an accreditation panel when a college that I work with was under the accreditation, and same thing, that most of them were happy with the information they were able to find on the faculty syllabi. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to question two. We're going to start with Beth this time. There are publisher online homework software available. They are handy to use. However, it is a challenging task to align it with the online content precisely. Please comment on how to better utilize the publisher software.
Well, I have to, excuse me, I have to say to this that with the linguistics of American Sign Language being such a kind of a different field in a niche area,
right,
there really isn't anything that's specifically developed online for homework. And I'm not sure that I would utilize it to the same degree that maybe others teaching English, something like that, might do. What I tend to use are different sources, videos that have been developed specifically for the content. But if I were to have some sort of publisher software, I think I would still, again, pick and choose relative to my syllabus and the learning objectives of the course. You know, so I don't know if I have answered that question, but
okay. Well, we'll turn it over to Debbie, and she can add on to that.
I will agree with exactly what Beth had said. One of my classes I teach is research methods, and that textbook, the textbook I use, does have a really rich online component, lots of interactive resources in terms of different types of quiz and flashcards and games. But just as Beth mentioned, and I think most faculty will agree, every faculty individualizes their class. So even though in my research methods class we cover pretty much every chapter in the textbook, there are some things that I emphasize more than others, some things that I don't even talk about in class. They're really not important in the big picture in my class. So I use them, and I encourage students to use them because it does help them engage with the material, but I use them as supplemental. Right now I use them just as supplemental optional activities. I point the students into the direction of the online resources, but they are not a component of their grade. In the past, I have used some components as part of their grade, but it's been very low stakes, basically a completion, not completion. It rolls into like a 10% portion of their total grade in the class.
Okay, great. Thank you both. I've noticed too, just over the years, that publishers are listening because I remember back in the day it was either all or nothing. You either adopted some type of a pack they gave you and you really couldn't pick or choose, and now they're kind of giving you that more a la carte option where you can pick and choose what you want to deliver and have students use. So that is a nice feature that's come along through the years. All right, we're going to go to question number 3, and this time I will start with Beth. What tools and or techniques have you found most effective for use online in your blended courses?
Well, we we have quite a number of items, and because this is a visual learning environment,
right.
The class is conducted, face-to-face is conducted completely voice off and sign language, but a lot of times students have receptive skill issues. So we have video chatting. There are resources that refer to how to develop presentations and using of academic. As we talk about academic writing in English, we talk about academic use of American Sign Language, which is something that they have to work on. They're very used to casual environments. We also have labs on campus that are where we have deaf tutors, and they will go in and work with deaf tutors on occasion. And video blogs, back and forth communication in video, along with discussions, typical discussion boards. But a lot of times students will pose questions to each other. Okay, how would you sign this? And I got in this situation and I wasn't able to communicate. And so there's some casual chatting going on as well, which is fine. I like that. I like when they depend upon each other, because if they want to become interpreters, they're going to have to depend on others, because it's usually a two people or 3 even in an interpreting situation, and using sign language for the deaf client.
Okay, and passing that on.
Well, this is great, because Beth mentioned a lot of things that I don't do, and I think part of it may be because we teach very different things. So
right.
Keeping in mind that I'm teaching research and statistics, so these are classes that are historically difficult for students anyway. So in terms of materials that have really worked well, one, I haven't found one single magic tool. But the closest thing for the content that I teach that I found in terms of helping students understand the content is through movies created by Captivate. And there's different screen capture software, Camtasia, and I know there's some freeware out there. But that's been the one thing that has resounding overall. I've never heard a student say they haven't been helpful in helping them understand the content. So that's always kind of top on my list. So I create movies that correspond to the slides that I have, and also walks the students through how to use the statistical software that we use. So those are very helpful in terms of the big picture content. I try to also think about what are some other ways that students can engage in the material. A lot of it is supplemental or low stakes. So I create games and flashcards through UCF's Materia. I'm not sure if other institutions have a similar resource available to them, but that's been very helpful to engage students in the content. As Beth mentioned, I also do discussion postings, and they're very specific. Students have to read an article and respond to specific questions, so it helps them engage deeply with determining to the extent that they understand the material through reading somebody else's research. And then also we have a research study that they can complete independently or in groups, and exams that are completed online. And so those are more high stakes, the research study and the exams. But they're very applied. So again, it helps them engage deeply with the material, just on a different level with their understanding that it's a high stakes kind of assessment. The one thing that I want to mention, though, in terms of tools and techniques, is something that I think you may have covered in previous weeks. It doesn't matter how great the tool or technique is if you don't have the class organized in such a way that a student can find it and can navigate the class itself. So there's kind of like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, you've got to have that organization of the class where students know where to find things and go before they can really get into understanding the material.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great contribution. Okay, we're going to move on to question number 4, and I think I may have swapped the order, so I apologize. So I'm going to start with Debbie on this one. Is it possible to have the assessment portion of the online face-to-face course done by students themselves? And if so, what are some of the more successful strategies?
This is something that I don't have much experience with.
Okay.
Are you talking about like peer grading and those kinds of things in terms of having students create the assessment portion of that?
Right, where maybe they submit them prior.
Okay, yes. No, I don't do that. The closest thing that I really do is through my discussion postings, they have to critique at least one posting of a peer's, but it's, again, a low stakes environment for that.
Okay, and I will turn it over for Beth.
Yeah, I'm glad Debbie mentioned that she wasn't really sure about how letting students design this sort of lessons and tests and whatnot. But I would say that I'm very similar in that I don't have a lot of experience with specifically allowing students to do that, but I do have them peer review with the content that they're developing. They have to present a group project in class, signed, PowerPoint, research-based, and they do a peer review of that presentation on an academic level and then on a sign language level, on how well was the message delivered and whatnot, similar to you might do with writing. So again, and I like how Debbie continues to mention low stakes. These don't, they have to participate, and they do, because they are anxious to hear one another's feedback, but they don't get graded on the actual feedback, but they enjoy it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but.
Right. Well, we can have questions submitted if it doesn't, and we'll make sure to
good.
follow up with that.
There we go.
But I've had similar things too, where they're either doing peer review on papers or artifacts that they're submitting. Sometimes they grade each other on participation if you've given them group work, and then I've even had to where if you give them a quiz and several of them got a question wrong, or they challenge a question, that they have the ability to even resubmit that question, and how would you have worded that question then, so that it would been easier for you to understand. And I've even used that as a resource for them to kind of even propose how to reword some questions that I thought were even clear when I created them. So thank you both for that. We're going to go ahead and go on to our final question, which is question number 5, and I'm going to start with Beth on this one. How extensively do you use learning objects with your students, both and face-to-face, or both online and face-to-face, and how do you construct the language of objectives to make them most useful to students?
Well, I think this is probably one of the easier questions for me, in the sense that because the information and learning American Sign Language structure relates so to acquisition, the spiral level of acquisition, and so if it's broken down phonologically all the way to language and use and discourse, so the students seem to like the fact that we bring up where we are in each objective, which is the part of the course. We are just starting at the very minimal pairs now. We're looking at the difference between hand shapes and phonology. Then we take it to the next step. So although they're listed in the syllabus and they're listed in each unit what the objectives are, each module, they seem to like the idea in discussion that it's on a spiral level. Now we've gone beyond this. Now we've gone beyond syntax and semantics. Now we're into, say, the highest level of language and use, ASL poetry. So that I think is the biggest way that I answer or address those course objectives as we go along. Each module addresses a specific developmental level. So the objectives really have been written very well for this course, and I'm glad of that.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Beth, so much for your contributions.
Yes.
Debbie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. I do my objectives differently depending on the class. So
Okay.
for my research methods class, it sounds like what I do is very similar to what Beth does. For every week, I have very specific objectives for that particular week, and then the syllabus has kind of more broader umbrella objectives for the class. For my statistics class, the way that statistics works is rather than sign language where it sounds like you've got this scaffolding and you're building on the weeks, once you learn some basic concepts, you're applying those same concepts to different procedures. So for my stats class, I have a set of objectives in the syllabus that really transcends to weekly objectives because we're just applying those same objectives to a new statistical procedure. So in terms of making the language such that students find it useful, I think just general, objectives should be written so they're specific and measurable.
Right.
And so writing in that fashion and thinking about going beyond just being able to have that factual knowledge. So what can I do to ensure students are applying what they're learning, that they're demonstrating all those higher level thinking and learning skills that you want students to do? I think about those as I put the objectives together, and then hopefully that translates to my assignments as well, is that they're doing more than just, being able to regurgitate a definition. They can actually use the software, look at a research question, and be able to compute the right statistic based on that particular question and given the data. So.
Great. Thank you, Beth and Debbie, both for your sincere answers to these questions that I know came in from our participants. So we really appreciate your time and your experience with that. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn it over to Rohan. I believe he's gotten some Q&As submitted for us.
Thank you very much, Sue. My first question is directed at Debbie. What are the benefits of using publishers' courseware in a blended course? And what I've done is summarize the discussion that is going on as well as questioning in that Q&A. So what are the benefits of using publishers' courseware in a blended course, especially in relation to the research course you spoke of?
The benefit to me is that it gives students a supplemental way, another way that they can engage in the material that I don't have to create. So, for example, with every chapter, the publisher has online quizzes, multiple choice and true-false. And I could create those myself, obviously, but the benefit is they've already done it for me. So even though not all the questions may be exactly what I would ask, they may have additional questions that I wouldn't ask, some that they didn't ask that I would have. It just gives another way that students can engage in the material that goes beyond just what I'm offering in the class, which I feel like we have a pretty rich class, but it's just an extra tool that can be introduced that gives students a way to engage.
Thank you very much. Beth, do you want to add anything to that at this moment?
No, but I do think, and yes, a little bit in that, I think students like to stay active with materials, and in some ways, if, as Debbie mentioned, low stakes materials, they use it as practice. And I think someone who's very interested in the content and truly wants to do well is going to seek avenues, and so it's nice to provide those sorts of things for them in a low stakes fashion.
Right.
Thank you, thank you. And I think I have a little question here, and they're asking about Captivate. Debbie, are you the person creating the Captivate concept videos, or do you use videos created by others? So that's the last question we'll take directed at you, Debbie.
Yes, I create my own. I create mine that correspond to the PowerPoint slides that I use in class. So I take the same slides that I would use in a regular, face-to-face setting, and just add the voiceover to those slides. So what I tell students is they're getting through the movies essentially what they would get in a lecture setting. The benefit is they can stop it and rewind it, play it again. They can go, watch it as many times as they want. So it's not a one-shot, face-to-face lecture.
Thanks, Debbie and Beth. That closes today's guest panel. If you have other questions, Sue and I will compile and forward those questions to Debbie and Beth, and we'll get responses back out to the group in the discussion area. Thanks again. Whoa, this is time for housekeeping again, and I can't believe that we are near the end of our learning journey. And Sue and I are delighted to have supported you on this learning journey. As we wrap up today's webinar, I want to touch base on a few housekeeping items. First of all, thanks for your feedback. If you haven't completed week 4 feedback, we're asking you, please take some time to complete it. We need the feedback, and the form is located in module 4 in Canvas. We value your feedback, and we want to say thanks for your kind words and constructive feedback that you have been consistently giving Sue and I, and also the team. As you might consider, what do I need to complete? Your level of participation, we have always said, is up to you. You set your own expectations, and we have now opened week 5 reading, so it's all available. Within our learning exchange, I call it Canvas, you can create your own discussion topics. Many of you have been doing it, and please continue your social networking. I have become a Twitter fan, and I've been tweeting quite a lot since the offset of this program, and it's well done to everyone who has participated. If you have submitted an assignment and not received a badge, please be patient. Sue and I are on track grading the DIY projects. We do have individuals submitting DIY 1, of course, and we're going to mark them as quickly as possible. If you're revising some of your DIY tasks, please resubmit them in the original DIY task. For example, a revised schedule or syllabus should be submitted to DIY 2. Otherwise, we'll be unable to track them. BlendKit credentialing. To receive your BlendKit badge, that is your credential badge, don't forget that, because it's important to know that you've worked thus far on so many DIY projects, and it's time to ensure that you claim your badges and also your credential. If you have been completing all the DIY projects each week, you are a strong candidate for the UCF EDUCAUSE Credential Certificate. The requirements to earn the certificate are 1. Complete the BlendKit 2015 course, and 2. Submit a portfolio of your course. For additional information on the portfolio, please go to the module in Canvas and you will see the directions. If you have questions at that point, please notify Sue and myself and we'll sort that out. Please note, I want to reassure you that if you submit your portfolio, we will give you feedback. And if additional evidence is needed for your portfolio to receive a passing grade, you'll be guided by our evaluators. We're also open now for discussion, as I said before. Module 5. This week we're starting Module 5. We began today with Module 5 after this. There's no late submission to the assignments. In fact, we have had submission, as I indicated before, week 1 coming in this week. Therefore, you have time to submit and move forward to the credentialing process. Next week, we'll be joined by Dr. Jessica Knott from Michigan State University and Dr. Dylan Ball from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. We'll hope you'll be able to join us. Please mark your calendars. Our focus next week will be on quality assurance. This is a topic at the hub of many discussions in K-12 and higher education. So it is quite timely that we end on this topic. Later today, you will be receiving an email message from Sue and I on some guidance on getting the most out of week 5. I want to say thanks for your participation today. Thank you again to our guests, Debbie and Beth. As always, to our production manager and technical expert, John Pizzo. I want to say have a great week. please do not hesitate to contact us. Let Sue and I know how we can help you on your learning journey. This is your course. Go out there and make it a great one and make it yours. Have a wonderful week. And from the BlendKit 2015 studio here in Orlando, we say goodbye and see you on line next week. Be there. Take care.